So the AC season has finished, and with that we move on to another set of UC and another set of predictions. Now I'm having to re-record this because of audio issues in the first recording, and going through the bracket, this has been by far the hardest set of UC predictions I can remember ever making. There's a lot of toss-up matches, and a lot that come quite early in the bracket, which with how the predictions works is really bad, because say if you pick RIH here and then RIH in these two rematching in round 3, but RIH lose round 1 and then win round 3, even though you picked RIH to win in the 3rd round, they're now different sides of the matchup, and even that will be wrong. So it's not just the winners, it has to be the exact sequencing. So one wrong matchup anywhere just throws everything off. And as you'll see when we get into it, that may well be quite a problem. So the way the top 16 itself has shaped out, there has been a fair bit of shenanigans, I'd say, as always with round 6 of AC in finalizing this list. So RRH, BTA, KSE, GCM, UTB, and CUM all didn't register. So that's 6 of the 16. And you also have PLQ, who were gifted a win by Ban in round 6 in exchange for feeding Elims onto Meridianos and Folking. And they obviously wouldn't have won that match if it was played normally. So that's 7 out of 16, almost half of the entire UC bracket, who have played the system a bit to actually get in. This happens every time at round 6. I'm surprised there still hasn't been a fix to it. Seems very easy to fix for me. Just give full loss points for not registering, a full minus 150, and none of the no registering would be possible. And at this point, the best suggestion I've heard about this is when you play an AC match in another alliance, that then resets your seasonal elims. So only when you play a match in a different alliance, going to trains or CCS, shells is fine. But that would quite easily fix some of this jumping around for high elim matches, which has also become more and more prominent this season as well. Until anything's done, people are going to keep doing this, as they should. They should always act in the best interests of their own members. But it is just a bit messy. Like if you're HD and you miss out on UC by 12 points, and you know that 6 of the 16 didn't even register, and 1 got gifted a win, that just objectively shouldn't be how it plays out. But anyway, that's our 16. Then we move on in to the bracket itself. So as always with this first round of matches, there's a lot of rollovers because of the nature of the seeding. So Ban will easily win that. WTF will easily win that. HOH will easily win that. WXC will easily win that. Dumb will easily win that. And MB will easily win that. Only 2 possible question marks in round 1 are RH BTA and PLQ KSC. I would say PLQ KSC isn't actually a question mark at all. It just might be a bit of an unknown to some people. So, first of all, as I said, PLQ got gifted this win to get into UC. Their best player, or their best account, has left to join MBE for UC, so they're weaker than they naturally would be anyway. And even at full strength, they're about 50 million alliance score. KSC registered, well, they didn't register, but they went into round 6 with 20 million alliance score, so they stacked up quite hard with just people looking for UC alliances to scrape some fragments and whatnot, I guess. Obviously, all their whales have gone to WXC, so it's not their normal roster whatsoever, but there is some decently strong people in there. You have the OGS group of people like Crucio, and a good chunk of strong Asian accounts, which will quite easily be able to take care of that PLQ roster realistically. Then you have RRH BTA. As you would expect from an 8th and 9th seed matchup, this is the hardest to predict, and this is very difficult. So as far as the talking points go for this matchup, if you didn't know already, BTA have merged with 1HR, so they've gained some accounts like Allerton, and they've actually stayed in this UC, rather than leaving elsewhere. They did have Damon King, who was the Mr. X account last set of event seasons, but that has been sold on again. I think it's called Devil Cat currently. But the actual BTA roster has been chunked up quite a lot. They did, however, have their max account Akron leave to ban for round 6. You can't see it currently because he's rejoined, but he isn't in the BTA roster for UC. So that's their best account by far. That is a big loss. RRH, on the other hand, haven't lost anyone. The time seeding will also be relevant. Round 1, so this will be a Wednesday. RRH have time slot priority, but BTA will assumedly pick 1-7-13, and then RRH will do 19-22, and either 1 or 13. I would expect it to be 1 AM, and 1 AM GMT for an Asian Alliance on a Wednesday isn't necessarily ideal either because it overlaps the workday, but it won't be great for either Alliance. Probably more so RRH though, realistically. If we look at the seasons, I don't think you can really glean anything from BTA's season. They haven't played anyone. It's just matches you would expect them to win. In dominant fashion, it looks like they just have rally leads directly racing into buildings without assigned races or anything. I would imagine that the vast majority of listeners to this video will be in 1900 alliances purely just because of the language, obviously. I don't think like any of us know what to expect from alliances like this ever. Just generally those middling Asian alliances, we get to UC and we just have no idea. Like, do they have a shot caller? Do they have a Discord? Do they have a rally timing system? I have no clue whatsoever, honestly. Looking over to RRH in comparison, I think the most impressive win either of them have had all season is this RRH win against HD. I heard some murmurings that RRH were maybe slightly self-critical about this match. Maybe because HD is just such a new unknown quantity. But pulling 97 participants, so RRH was in a participant deficit there, and with the accounts they have, they vastly outwhale RRH, but also BTA, which would be RRH's matchup here. So Orval is like a 370k score account, I think. Envoy is 350k score. That's the Draken account sold. Orval has Sarara. I think Stuns has Kasana. You have Carillion and Zarathus with Vorian. This guy has a 4-star Night King weapon. There are a lot of very sneaky, very strong whales in HD who are realistically just more up-to-date and optimized than the top end of this current BTA UC roster, especially with Akron out. So I think because of that win, I'm going to put my confidence in RRH. But I don't feel great about that pick, honestly, especially because it's at a weird time slot. Like if RRH's shot caller can't show up because of the time slot, then it's just going to be a disaster, obviously. So there's a lot of unknown quantities there, but that will be my pick. They have the accounts to deal with BTA, and you would expect they will be better practiced, and through that, better prepared to win a match like this. Then in round 2, things get very messy. There's a few gimme matches, so Ban, WXC, and that's about it. It starts getting very sketchy this early. So fuck against PLQ. I think the PLQ roster just can't be competitive with anyone else in UC, unfortunately. So by default through that, I'm going to pick fuck there. But fuck themselves are a very unknown quantity to most people, obviously. FDH Cum will be again close. The 70 limit will favor Cum just naturally because they have lower attendances than FDH. FDH were a bit of a mess going into the season, I would say, but they've merged for AC at least with Sin, and through that their attendances are back to top end numbers, and they've also got a good chunk of high level accounts in with that, like the Mad King and a few others, Mystic Golden. I have big question marks about coordination, but I also have big question marks about Cum's coordination. Cum also lost their best account, Karasa, to Ban for round 6, so that's a blow to them. The top end of Cum will be quite annoying to deal with solos and whatnot, but past that top end of like 5, 6, 7 accounts, I think FDH should be taking the win there. Again, though, if it goes the other way, it really wouldn't surprise me in that case. Then Dumb MBE. MBE are looking very strong going into this UC. They got maybe 10 or more people as UC recruits on the final day going into round 6. They also had Dra join, who's a true max account. Dumb will find it impossible to kick him. Between last season and this season as well, Zell in MBE has bought the Only King, who is now MBE's strongest account in their normal roster. So that is a big swing towards them compared to previous seasons also. Dumb themselves are in a bit of a weird between situation between them and WXC, where some of their whales have gone to WXC, but in return, Dumb have actually been beefed up quite a lot by those who there weren't spaces for in WXC. So they have Jason, Strawberry stayed back, they have Darius and Dudu's accounts, Nightwing and Night King, Mini Yagami, Death Note's ult there, and quite a lot of chunky accounts. I'm not sure it's going to be enough to truly be competitive with MBE. I think they'll have trouble kicking them out of buildings if they have to use the full depth of their rally list. Banana, for example, is in WXC, so it's not all a net positive for them. I think if they're going to win, they're going to have to stick their top accounts into buildings and hold on them and play a defensive game more so than playing something overly offensive. But realistically, MB's roster, unless they hugely misplay, should just be a bit too much for them. The time will be weird for MBE because Dumb will pick 1-7-13, so it will be at, I expect, 1 AM, but it's on a Saturday. I don't think it will have that much of an effect, especially with the 70 limit now. Those weird time slots aren't as punishing as they used to be, since people that can't make it, you can just keep out of the list. The WTF HOH. So I think going into this season, I've seen a lot of comments, especially after their first match where they lost quite heavily against MBE. There was a lot of surprise about that I saw. I think people who aren't hugely stalkerish and just obsessively follow all this stuff would have assumed they'd go in as like a top tier alliance, competing for first again, considering they're obviously the UC champions twice in a row. What's happened there is the top end of Dep, and through them all their connections were joining into WTF the past 2 seasons, and they're no longer there. They're now in WXC and to a lesser extent Dumb. So they've lost about half of their rally list that won UC. They've also lost quite a big chunk of their shot calling, a lot of their racing. Naturally, it's just impossible to meet those standards without those people still in the alliance, so there was going to be a big drop-off through that. I can only base it off our own matches in HOH against MB and WTF. We beat MB last UC, we beat WTF the last time we played them without the Dep recruits, so I'm obviously going to back my own alliance there and go with HOH. Then there's Leg BTA and UTB GCM. Leg BTA, somewhat similar to RRH, there's a lot of similar talking points there. Time slot, again, it's going to be terrible for Leg. My worry for Leg is they don't have the top-end accounts like RRH do to properly hold against some of the soloing pressure from BTA. When we've played Leg in events, they haven't really tried against us because it's an unwinnable match, so it's better to save speeds, but their commitment and their coordination was surprisingly good to me. The issue was they just didn't have top-end accounts. They obviously had Whiterwin and Abdi Rockman in the past. Neither of them are in the roster. I have a suspicion they might slaughter BTA on racing, but I think my pick here will be BTA just because Leg are lacking a bit of that top end. Again, I really don't love this pick at all. I don't feel great about it, but with the information I have, that's what makes just slightly the most sense to me. And then we have UTB GCM. So I predicted this in the Siege of Winterfell playoffs and got it wrong. Even in hindsight, I'm not entirely sure I regret that pick, really, because it was based on roster strength. And from what I heard, UTB's coordination was actually very, very good, whilst GCM's was very, very messy. So I think that match was mostly won through shot calling and systems, which is very hard to predict sometimes from an outside perspective. I think it'll be the same route to victory in this, though, if UTB are to win, because I still think GCM have a stronger top end and a deeper top end for holding buildings and soloing in UC. Kind of feels like a mini BDR depth prediction from the past, where I think UTB will be more coordinated and they can win through that, but GCM could just brute force it a bit with the accounts they have. So if we look at their matches, it's hard to glean a lot from them because all their relevant matches, both of them actually, had ban recruits in, so no, you can't really compare results or wins against each other. You see here, ban recruits in was actually against WXC recruits and NW1, ironically, and it's the same for GCM. They were against NW1, NW1 had a few WXC recruits in, GCM entered with like 1 troop each, and then on round 5 they stacked with Benny, Anna, Angel, Tannerlin, Omni, 1, and then just no registered round 6. So I don't really know how you can draw many conclusions out of this. In the initial recording of this video, before the audio issues and I had to re-record it, I was looking through this match and I was just having a total mental breakdown of utter confusion of all these UTB players joining GCM for this match as well. It was so confusing to me. There is just so much jumping around and alliance hopping throughout this entire UC bracket. It's utter chaos. But yeah, objectively, GCM's top end is stronger with Minity, Strike, Quadesh, Tweety, Knight Rider. These accounts, the thing is with all of them though, they are all cav. So if UTB is to win, I think they're going to have to hold for extended periods of time on their top end spear players, so Morella, Mandy, because on anyone else, I think you're going to be susceptible to cav solos very badly. I would be surprised, especially with base attack buffs, if Minity couldn't solo literally every single account in the UTB roster except Morella and Mandy, and that's purely just because of troop type. Like if they have messed up troop compositions, you'd solo them too. So that is a problem, because in the current meta of UC, you have to hold so many buildings, you need to get the base attack buffs. So through that you need Warrior, you need an Outpost, you need Mother, then you need the points with those buffs, so you're going to need Ports, you're going to need Casterly, and then when you have all your best rallies tied up in those buildings to actually get yourself into a lead, then the mines open, and then you've got to get both mines, and your rally lead list is spread so thin that top-end soloing pressure becomes very, very difficult to deal with, and a lot of alliances can just brute force matches through that. Coordination be damned. Neither alliance has really lost anyone from what I can tell. They've retained their full rosters, so that won't come into the thinking whatsoever, and I really go back and forth with how I think this match will play out, but I think the right pick is GCM because of the rally lead depth and soloing pressure through that, but they need to at least not be slaughtered by the shot calling difference, I think. Otherwise UTB could very, very easily take it. Then round 3, we're back to some easier, more predictable predictions. So I picked RH against BTA. In round 1, I'm going to make the same pick for the same reasons in round 3. WTF beat GCM, same reasons as we will in round 1, assumedly. Stronger roster, more coordinated. The stack dumb roster, I think, would just be too much for FDH, both account-wise and coordination-wise again. Then you have CAC fuck, and this is the most typical ever CAC UC prediction, where it's just a total toss-up. No one has any idea what is going on or what is going to happen. I can pretty much guarantee you watching this video right now, you cannot name me 10 players in KSC's UC roster, because it's just a total mismatch of whatever was on offer to fill the spaces going into round 6. And I would expect as well, other than a few people, you have no idea what to expect from fuck either, because you've never played them in an event, have no idea about their coordination or anything. What I do know is KC will not have any coordination. They will not have a shot caller. They will not have systems. It will just be utter chaos. The only way you can win with that is by brute forcing wins, and their max accounts have left for WXC, obviously. And I assume Fark has a shot caller. I assume they have Discord, they all get in voice together, they have some semblance of coordination with rally timing and reinforcement calls on defenses. And for that one fact alone, I will pick Fark. Fark do have accounts they'll be able to hold on the CAC accounts that are in there. They do have some decently strong accounts in there, like the OGS people with Crucio and such. The old Songnam account is in there. But honestly, Fark have more than enough to be competitive with that. They have a lot of bought accounts here. So off the top of my head, there's like the Mark de Cafe account, Deadpool's the Grim Malicious account. What else? Probably easier if I rank by power. Total Wreck is the Freeze account. And there's a good chunk more of top-end bought accounts. Just get them on buildings, hold on them, and you should be able to beat KSC. Don't go in with any defeatist attitude. Every rally lead they're going to fill with half T4 bows on every building. It will just be a total mess. It always is with KSC, so Fark will be my pick there. Then round 4, Ban will easily win there, WXC will easily win there, WTF will easily win there, and Dumb will easily win there. The power mismatches all the way down are just too big, and then we have the top 6 formed there. So obviously these are rematches from round 2. I'm going to make the exact same picks for the exact same reasonings. So HOH and MBE. Then we have Ban WXC and HOH MBE. So as I mentioned previously, MBE have bulked up quite a good chunk for UC. They have this very impressive win first match against WTF. We have had just a nothing season, honestly. I mean, MBE have as well, other than that first match. All of our 11 matches are just rollovers one way or another. It's either us getting battered by Ban twice each. I think neither of us were trying in any of these matches. And then the positions we were in against Ban, others were in against us, just because of the power imbalances between the rosters. So you can't read much into those results. On a personal note, from HOH, we have a very expensive run here, playing WTF twice, and then MBE. That is pretty brutal. Theirs isn't that great either, with Dumb twice and then us, but I think I'd rather play Dumb than WTF. We beat MBE quite significantly last UC, and whilst the rosters have swung in their direction a bit, I don't think it's overwhelming enough for me to pick against my own alliance here. It is, however, very, very close, and it's just going to come down to who plays the best match in the day, who makes the least mistakes, who makes the best calls and the best plays. And the rosters are balanced enough where it kind of is on a knife's edge. I will be backing my own alliance there and picking HOH. Then there's the match which will determine who I'm picking to win the whole thing. So Ban is a merge between BDR and N3O. Doesn't even need to be said how strong an alliance that is. They've also added Akron and Problemki to the UC roster. So Problemki is the Abdi Rachman account sold. So basically 2 max accounts added. BDR have historically been the main competition to Dep and the past 2 seasons WTF. And you can kind of envision this as BDR plus Abdi Rachman, Akron, Meridianos, Benny, Nightmare, and just the whole list of top-end N3O leads. The best thing about this roster is also just how competent the players are. The average standard of player in terms of competency is potentially the highest ever in the game, at least of something that isn't just stacked temporary recruits. It's just a lot of very mechanically and intelligently competent players, which goes a long way in terms of small details in AC, like filling rallies quickly, reinforcing them to swaps, and all those things. WXC on the other side, very similar to Dep in previous seasons, where their roster is just ridiculous. So you have the Twix group with Peacetown, Black Bear, other CAC people like Menat, and others joining in. You've also got the likes of Gannicus, all the WoW whales. You've got NW1's top-end accounts, Relax most significantly there. You have likely Dumb's best account, and Banana, Orval from HD, Y2N, Lancelot from MBE even. The roster is exhaustively good. Eris, It just goes on and on and on. And obviously I'm just talking about specific UC recruits there. The default WXC roster of CCCPC, BZZB, General 43, Asterix, or Tizio, all of them, all insanely strong and very up-to-date with the new power creep commanders and whatnot. So this is going to be one where I'll make my pick, but I'll just explain my reasoning, and you can make your own decisions off that. So I think the coordination lead will be with Ban, primarily because of the BDR players in there. But then on the other side, WXC has a stronger roster. It's just, can Ban's roster be brute forced with how strong that is at this point too? WXC should assumedly also have the advantage of max account racing. You have Twix there on Peacetown. I don't know if they have any relevant matches that they've actually tried in to really check any of this stuff, like CCs being raced into buildings, Menat directly into Warrior. If you start racing these top-end accounts into buildings, it gives you just such a good platform to build on. When picking this, I've tried using R2 matches against Ban as a bit of a frame of reference. So I know in these matches, when I had a full T5 defense, I couldn't be soloed by people in Ban. That will obviously mean that WXC has an ungodly amount of unsoloable people. And the person that actually came closest or performed best at soloing me, because I obviously lost a lot of solos when there was some T4s in, or the troop compositions was a bit off, was Folking with infantry. And I think that's going to be a key part of this matchup, because the top-end meta in the game right now is Vorian infantry, and somewhat specifically with 4-star Night King weapon as well. That build, that 5 commanders of Night King, Vorian, Daron, Sonara, and then John and Ray are slightly interchangeable, is so far ahead of everything else at that very top end. And I think WXC have a bit more of that at their disposal. If I were them, I'd just run as many Vorians as possible. I'd get CC running it, Peacetown running it, Black Bear running it, Gannicus running it. I'd just have everyone running it, and I'd bring an excess of infantry, and I'd just stack every single building with Vorian Inf. Because I think we counted against Ban, they had 12 gold Kasanas in one match, and that didn't include some, like I learned today in CCS, Omni has Kasana 4-star gold. We didn't even know about that at the time. And it seems like Ban are slightly pigeonholed into Kasana builds on a lot of their top-end rally leads. And Kasana's just performing so much worse than that Vorian build especially. I do think that'll be quite a heavy swing towards WXC. Ban obviously do have a lot themselves, and they can stick them in buildings and hold on them, but they just don't have a billion of them that can all solo simultaneously like WXC do. So, for those reasons of max account racing and depth of Vorian max accounts especially, WXC will be my pick there. Ban will slaughter us there, assumedly, and then I'll make the same pick in finals for the same reason I made it in round 6. This is a very close matchup, though, and it really will flip at the turn of a coin. You know, does CC get raced into the right mine, or does he lose that race? That alone can be a match-determining moment, and who knows until you actually get into the match of that. It's a unique case where I think both alliances will actually be relatively confident. I think Ban would definitely be on a high after the Siege of Winterfell playoffs. That would have been a very reaffirming moment. But AC is a different beast, obviously, and you will not be able to be anything but perfect against this WXC roster and be able to win. So yeah, those are my predictions. There are so many 50-50 matches that if you disagree with any of my decisions there, you should definitely just make your own call on some of those matches. But hopefully going into my thought processes on my decision makings at least can be of some help in leading towards a decision.